Joining us in studio for some more analysis on the Dewani extradition is criminal law attorney Tyrone Maseko. Tyrone, thank you for joining us on Morning News today. Now, just listening to the confirmation there about this chartered flight, he's not coming on an ordinary sort of a passenger airplane. Does this necessarily mean, though, that Shrien Dewani is getting special treatment? Could it not be that this flight was chartered by his family?
Yeah, anything is possible. I think what is going to be fair and say, because we don't really know the details. Really, what it is just a logistical arrangement, Yuveka. So the way that I see it, it doesn't matter materially, how it happens. Generally, yes, you would be on a commercial flight and the proper arrangements would be made. So I wouldn't make much of it. But yes, of course, if it is our government that's paying for a chartered flight, then obviously people will make a big deal out of it.
Well, if it's you and me paying for the flight, then we will make a big deal of it. Now, what can Shrien Dewani expect when he actually lands here at Cape Town International?
Okay, so we're pretty clear on what's going to happen. It's going to be brisked away to court, the High Court in the Western Cape. And what I expect is going to happen is, because all the parties already know that he suffers from some kind of mental incapacity, the arrangement is in place that, the charges will be put to him initially. He'll be told why is at court. And I don't think he'll be asked to plead. And the reason for it is that because of these alleged mental frailties, he probably is not in a position to plead. And so what's going to happen is that he will then be committed to a psychiatric treatment center.
A Falkenberg, as we know.
Correct, yes. Correct, to assess whether actually he is able to comprehend proceedings in court and whether he'd be able to plead. So that assessment should really be done by 3 psychiatrists. Generally, what would happen is that you'd have the psychiatrists appointed by the accused themselves, they can afford one appointed by the court, and one that is a state psychiatrist, so the medical superintendent. They'll all file a report. That report then gets looked at by the court. If all of them are unanimous on him possibly not being in a position to plead and comprehend proceedings, then that might very well be the end of the matter. He then will be sent back to the UK.
To be put into another facility?
Well, we don't really know what will happen if he's sent back to the UK. Generally, the process is that, let's say, for example, if it was someone who was South African, then you'd become a state patient, is what we call it. You are committed to a medical center where you're then taken care of.
So are you saying that he may never go to trial? He may never go to trial.
That's correct. He may never go to trial.
And never have to answer.
He may never have to answer. But I'm not saying it is going to happen.
Because
if it turns out that he is able to comprehend proceedings and plead to the charge and actually follow what happens, then he certainly will stand trial. But if he's not in that position, then he may never stand trial, unless, of course, at a later stage it is determined that he is now fit to stand trial. Then he may very well stand trial again.
So you say that would happen if all 3 of these assessors, we'll call them that, are unanimous. Would it be sort of a case of all of them have to be on the same page, or even if one disagrees, we take 2 out of 3? How does this actually work?
Okay, so how it works is that remember, you don't need to use all 3, but let's assume that they use all 3. Then they all file a report. If they're unanimous, it's quite clear the court has to accept their position, and there's very little leading of evidence after it. However, if they are not unanimous, then generally what happens is that you have a process where evidence has to be led. So the court has to decide which party they think. Generally, how court processes are, trying to decide, which is the more credible version. Then you'd like to see evidence being led on that aspect.
How long does all of this take? How long do we know whether he will actually go to trial or be sent back to the UK?
Difficult to say, but what I can say is that the law says that once you've been committed to the psychiatric treatment center, that has to happen on a 30-day basis. So for every 30 days, so you have to appear in court again after 30 days. But obviously that can be extended at another 30-day period at a time.
So we're not even looking at bail or anything at this point. That's not even under question. At Falkenberg itself, what can he expect there? Would he be, from all likelihood, the undertaking is that he will be held in a psychiatric facility. He will not be, like we heard, sent to await trial in something like Pollsmoor prison. What are the conditions he can expect at Falkenberg?
Not having been there myself, but I presume that what it is really, it's like any mental hospital, I suppose, where over time you are assessed as to your mental state, and there'd be doctors, psychiatrists, and the like. So I assume that's what it is, really.
So they wouldn't actually use any of the assessments done in the UK by psychiatrists there, that the assessments we had during the entire sort of extradition hearing as to whether he should come here or not, would those be used as well?
Difficult to say, but I think, assume that it would be South African as experts would be required to actually undertake the assessment. So, preliminary, we can accept that their views are that he's not fit, but I think that we would want to conduct our own assessment. So I don't think that they would really hold water that much. I don't think that it would be submitted as proof. But having said that, it is a possibility. But I think that because our law is very clear on what's supposed to happen, is that he will be assessed here. He'll certainly be assessed here independently as required by the court. As to whether he himself uses a report from the UK or whether I get someone here locally, we'll find out later.
Okay, we'll wait and see. Definitely very interesting to watch. Thank you very much. Criminal law attorney Tyrone Maseko there on Shrien and Dewani.
You deserve to know more.
eNCA.com